All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new edition of Pod by the BAE. I'm your host, Nathan Bond, joined alongside me, Seth Varnadore, Robert Steeg. Boys, we are fresh off a convincing, if yet unstylish, victory as the South Florida Bulls easily dismantled Bethune Cookman 48-3 on Saturday night. Um, Not too much to read into. This is a pretty bad FCS team that had lost a lot from a bad team last season. Um, it's interesting. It seemed from the jump, it seemed like they started the wrong quarterback, but we'll get into that. Seth, Steeg, initial thoughts on? We actually have a football game to talk about and not just hypotheticals, so that's always a plus.
That's always fun. Not trying to guess what the depth chart looks like or what the injury report is going to look like or anything like that. We get to actually talk about live and in-person sports. For those in the Ponderosa game thread, I made my stance incredibly clear about this game. I mean, from like minute one, truthfully, honestly, God bless Bethune Cookman. I hope they're able to turn it around at some point. We aren't going to learn much about this USF team from this game. It was just, the USF didn't have to flip to page 2 in that playbook. Defense played pretty basic the entire time. I don't even think they blitzed really. I think it was just maybe occasionally the other linebacker would, have a hot blitz, but it was basically 4 people blitzing the entire time, playing some sort of weak zone coverage. And they couldn't do anything about it. So, but the most important thing that happened, actually, that's a hot teaser. I'll leave that for a little bit. Seth, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it went about as expected, right? I think Nathan and I both picked USF to cover, and partially because Bethune Cookman was it was not a Florida A&M was a pretty good FCS team last year. This Bethune Cookman team was nowhere near that level. So you kind of did what you're supposed to. I thought at times, started a little slow on offense, surprisingly a little bit, but I think it was a lot of it was like Steve said, they weren't showing much. Like it was pretty vanilla, and it's always nice when you can play vanilla and cover a 40-point spread. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, Steve, you mentioned it, and I think it was in the Ponderosa. You said didn't flip to the second page. The most creative thing that this team did was the fake screen that Bryce Arch, like the basically fake screen corner, like slant route to Michael Brown Stevens that Bryce Archie put in there like 94 miles an hour. Like that was the craziest thing that they did on offense. And Seth, you nailed it. Like win comfortably. On a like even when the spread, I think the spread peaked at like 43. You still cover that.
Yeah,
that's a pretty good start for this team. A couple highlights. 4 different runners had a touchdown. Kelly Joyner led the way. 14 carries, 78 yards, and 2 scores. Teron Keith had a touchdown. Naquan Wright had a touchdown. Byron Brown had a very impressive 42-yard scamper that was aided by a non-holding call. But I mean, we can talk about the refs here if we want. But good God, I mean, not entirely sure how they missed that hold on Abdur Rahman Yassin. But then, however, how the rest of the game played out, you understand how this ref crew missed the holding. But
when the head officials got like thick glasses on, it's always a tough look.
Oh
like,
man,
okay, well, that's not great. Yeah.
Oh good lord. Couple more highlights. I think this team basically without the backups in, they averaged, I think it was close to 6 yards per carry. Kelly Joyner 5.6, Byron 9.3, Teron Keith 5.6, Naquan Wright only 2.7 yards. He continues to get turf monstered in between the tackles, which is infuriating. So we'll see if that fixes itself. But Yassine had a very good game, 5 catches, 73 yards. Sean Atkins, a steady 4 for 42. Offensively, we know they didn't do much or try much. Did anything kind of stand out, Seth, on your end, kind of watching on the TV copy of this offense and what it can be going forward?
Yeah, I mean, like it was super vanilla. You liked what you saw from Rahman, Yassine, I think. But I thought like the more interesting thing was going back and looking at kind of snap counts and that kind of thing and seeing which of the receivers played a lot, who didn't play at all. I think there's a couple of guys that didn't register snaps. You're like, oh, okay. That you definitely thought had a place early, but yeah, it was good to see some of those guys that you'd heard about kind of integrate into the team. Teron Keith, I thought it was good to see him at back, also returning punts. He did a pretty good job back there, so I wonder if he'll get more opportunities. And then it looks like you got a good amount of. I think that was the thing. Like I did a radio spot on Friday, and the guy asked me what is going to be the most surprising thing for USF fans. And I thought that my answer was that there's a lot more depth on the team this year and a lot more competitive depth. And I think that translated pretty well onto the field. You saw a lot of guys play, and a lot of guys play pretty well. So there wasn't a major drop-off. Like you said, like first throw for Bryce Archie is a laser beam to the back of the end zone for a touchdown. And then Michael Brown-Stevens toe taps to catch it. So, yeah, I think that was the best thing to see. Is just that feels like there's more depth, but the odd thing was some guys that didn't play at all. That kind of some of them we talked about and kind of said, "Hey, keep your eye on this guy," and then there were others that were kind of a little bit out of nowhere. So that's interesting to watch going forward.
Yeah, one of the guys kind of out of nowhere really was not on my radar at all and completely missed until Sunday looking at the snap counts was Naeem Simmons didn't register a stat, didn't register a snap, reached out to USF. They said he was injured. So something to look forward to, look into going forward. I guess another guy to kind of watch as well is it seems like at least defensively, Deshaun Rucker is a freaking stud. I think he registered 3 tackles, all of them solo. I think he led the team in solo tackles, which is pretty impressive. A lot of Jahari Grant, we'll talk about, who was phenomenal. I think he had 6 tackles. Only 1 was a solo tackle, defined as such by the stat people. But Amaris Brown played 13 snaps. This guy was...
And that wasn't an injury, right? That was...
No, I was told Deshaun Rucker just beat him out.
There you go.
So, there you have it. Yeah, I think that kind of shows the depth. And it wasn't even like, oh, well, then just put him on the other side of the field. No, Brent Austin, Paco, we've talked about for 4 or 5 months at this point. They love this dude. He was great as well. So kind of going forward, you gotta expect the depth, at least in the secondary. Yeah, game 1. Caveats abound. This was a terrible, god-awful team that showed no threat to throw the ball downfield. You got to feel good. Kawan Banks in the nickel spot was good. Tavin Ward, Kaquavis Berryhill was back there. Jalen Stokes got a little bit of run at the safety spot, but that's kind of good. They
had 35 guys registered 10 or more snaps on defense. Like they were
That's healthy.
Well, yeah,
that's healthy.
That's healthy. That's how you hopefully stay healthy as well. Which bad foreshadowing on probably the major takeaway from this game.
Yeah, I think the major takeaway is, oh my God, Jalen Schuler played 11 snaps, and I think his PFF grade is kind of off the charts. If I'm not mistaken, he had an interception, and on that interception return,
he had a 92.9 defense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I heard somebody say today 70 is like average.
And really he got penalized for targeting because the QB slid like super late.
He was coming to annihilate that guy. Though.
Yeah, if for their first QB, that was the best play he made the entire night, was that late slide to almost first off die, and then second off get Jalen Schuler almost kicked out of the game. But yeah, I think really, I mean, to address the elephant in the room, I hope he's okay. I thought he shattered his leg. I
thought just watching the replay back, I thought at best it's a hyper extension, right? It's like a hyper extension, but I'm not a doctor, obviously. So,
and honestly, if he got like, I don't want to say carted off, if he was helped off, I would feel better, because then at least we can kind of discern, okay, it was probably bad. He's probably gonna be out for a little bit. Really, there's two ways this could go. It's like you said, the hyperextension, low grade sprain. He's out for like 2 to 3 weeks, and he comes back. The other option is that it's a torn ACL. That you can walk on a torn ACL, and then next man up. So those are the two options for tomorrow.
And I've already taken a vow. I just want everyone to know that if it is a season-end injury, I will not be drafting any more starters in the fantasy drafts at the beginning of each season. I'll take. I'll draft walk-ons from here on out. So next year, just remember that. Want to have the Ryan Bolduc Memorial quarterback position.
We might want to just stop doing the draft at that point. Honestly,
it's so much fun though. I enjoy it.
It is.
Maybe we should just do it like the old NCAA games and just draft linebacker number 7 instead. Maybe
yeah. I was thinking about it, that we're so stupid, and we should have just done this from the jump. So like it was actually kind of fair when we did the drafting. Everybody gets the team quarterback,
we could do that.
And then you draft everybody else.
Yeah, that probably would have been smarter. Next year we'll do that.
Next year 4, we're back better than ever with smart strategy.
This is the first year where it's been totally pretty determined who the quarterback's going to be before we drafted.
Yeah, I guess what? So 2022.
It was McLean or.
But was it?
He transferred right after I picked him. So it was McLean.
Was it
Jordan Smith? And then it was Bohannon or Byron last year. And this year it's just Byron. But Bryce Archie came through in the clutch for my team. Really hopeful.
Yeah, I don't know. That was Bohannon had it. Like it was not even. Let's be real here. Offensive line, and I was anticipating 20% of the lineup being different. I did not anticipate 60% of the offensive line to be different. Basically from the bowl game. Starting at left tackle, RJ Perry, who head coach Alex Polish discussed, he was the best version of himself, and he was the starting left tackle, and did a pretty good job of holding up. So good job by him. Left guard was interesting. I did not expect Cole Best to also be like. It just seemed weird, but he was the left guard and he was efficient. They were pretty good. And then Mike Lofton steady at center, but then right guard, Jack Wiltie, the transfer.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere.
Getting the start.
That was a bit of out of nowhere.
goalish kind of he was kind of like a throwaway name when he was like, oh yeah, like we've got like 8 guys that we feel comfortable with, and he's the starter. And then Derek Bowman, right tackle. The numbers did not like what Bowman did on Saturday. So we'll see how that goes. But I think the key here, Andrew Kilfoyle, who was also kind of in that rotation, he played 5 snaps. I saw him walking off the field after the game. He seemed pretty hobbled still by that ankle. So definitely something to kind of keep an eye on going forward. And then Zane Herring, he got a concussion during the bowl game and left early. And it seems like there's still some lingering effects from that concussion. Was told he was practicing in a red non-contact jersey up until the last week. He was in one. So that is something to keep in mind going forward. You kind of get those 2 guys back and maybe you feel a little bit better depth-wise. But at least for now, through the first game, starting 5 seemed good enough. We'll see what they do against Alabama, though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot we do that.
Yeah.
Tough turnaround. You want to talk about it? You want to talk about a difference in quality?
Yeah, I'm really looking at the stat box.
Disparate.
Right. I'm looking at the stat box for the first time, like in depth. I didn't realize Micah Bowens didn't complete a pass.
Oh, he's awful.
He was brutal.
Well, he technically completed a pass.
How terrible is Cam Ransom in practice? That was my biggest question.
I mean, seriously, this
guy just awful in practice. He must be terrible.
That's the crazy part.
He was making some dots, man. Like he was cooking. But yeah, as far and I just checked. No explosive plays given up by the defense. No Bethune Cookman play went over 20 yards.
Well.
That is definitely a start in the right direction. That's how you kind of dominate a bad team. And you'll see Ole Miss, Arkansas put up absolutely silly numbers against like inferior competition. Like they can do that pretty easily. I'm happy that USF was able to do what they did. They left a couple of points out there, and let's briefly touch on what happened down by the end zone. This is an absolute catastrophe.
Craziest thing ever.
So it's 1st and 10 from the +12. Kelly Joyner gets either 10 yards or 9.9 yards, depending on who you ask, right? The bad part of this is they were really quick to the line. So now it was either 2nd and inches from the 2-ish or 1st and goal from the 2. The chain gang did not get set. The first down marker was put down, then brought back up. So then now the team thinks they still can get a first down. It's an absolute cluster. USF thinks they get the first down and then are moving forward up until the point where the refs stop after the previous play was already completed to stop to say, hey, no, that last play that you did was actually 4th down. And it was just an absolute cluster tire fire from this ref crew. Said it on Twitter, like this is a sit them down for a couple of weeks kind of error. Like if the game's closer, if this is like an FBS versus FBS game, there's definitely more eyes on it. But because it was Bethune and because it was already starting the makings of a blowout, nobody's going to care. I think the conference should care. I have not seen the conference say a word about it, which is infuriating. Because if that happened to them in a game that truly mattered, I think they'd be crazy. They'd be going crazy. So I don't know. Keep the same energy is what I say.
Yeah. I mean, looking at I know ESPN feeds from the stat keeper, and they had it as Kelly Joyner ran for 10 yards to the Bethune Cookman 2, and he did not get to the 2-yard line. And I'm almost positive at that. I am, unless you were giving him the most generous spot, he got maybe to the 3. Like they ran the plays consecutively as if, because historically, if you could just kind of run it up the middle in this offense, you can get at least 2 yards either on that first or the second time that you run it short, just by the nature of how quick you're getting these plays off. And it paid off for them because they got the 3 yards on what they thought was, the next play. And then, it was a cluster, and I can understand it in this type of situation where, game one, jitters, the ref crew was clearly not up to the standards and everything like that. Not a game breaking mistake by any means. I mean, it probably changed this score from, I did Bethune Cookman score on the following drive? Is that when they
No, they didn't. That's
they
when they
punted.
QB sneaked at
and
-1.
Right. And so at that point, the only difference was the fact that USF was held to 48 points instead of, 55. That's really the big difference of what this entailed to. But, in a more dire situation, that cannot happen ever again for USF, for the refereeing crew that refs USF. That needs to be something that Golish harps on more than anything. Is if you have to give us the benefit of the doubt, you have to give us the benefit of the doubt of what these plays are, because we're going to go so fast that you have to keep up with us. We're not slowing down.
Yeah. The chain game was real slow all night. I was watching the game back. They were really this wasn't the first time that the chain game was slow, either getting set or marking where the ball was. This is just a particular time where it kind of bit them on the butt. So definitely something to look forward to moving forward. Certainly. Turning the page, I think, would be the nice way to put it. USF travels to Tuscaloosa on Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. This Alabama Crimson Tide under new management, Kalen Deboer, national championship runner-up coach, is at the helm. Jalen Milroe, there still. They decimated Western Kentucky on Saturday, 63-0. So much so that the Western Kentucky boards are thinking this is the worst excuse for a football program. They need to change this. They melted down after losing to Alabama. I think that's a bit absurd, but here we are in 2024.
Yeah. So Alabama had 9.2 yards of play on offense and gave up 3.3 yards of play defensively. So pretty good start there. pretty good.
Good start.
I'm looking at weren't interesting. So the only things that are negative, I'll just go ahead and share this. So I'm looking at game on paper for Alabama here. Only things that are not bright green are EPA per rush. Now they still ran for a ton of yards, but EPA per rush was a little bit low. They did run for 341 yards, but they ran it 46 times. So the per rush numbers are a little down. Red zone success and defensive stuff rate wasn't perfect, but they just dog walked Western Kentucky. Pretty good explosive play rate there, 14%. Yeah, so I think it's going to be a pretty tall task, I'd say, this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, and the memes are great. I love what the fan base is doing, but I do not want this fan base under any delusions to think that it's a winnable game in the sense that, hey, any given Saturday, just not this one. Just not this particular Saturday. The next 2 weeks are going to be hell on earth for this fan base, especially after what we saw Miami do to Florida on Saturday. So, right? Yeah, back to back, aren't they? Oh no, sorry.
No, they got Southern Miss in between.
Oh, thank God.
There's a reprieve. There's a reprieve.
Holy crap, that team is ass. Oh God, Tate Rodemaker. Good Lord. So Kalen Deboer is out to prove a point. You never want to be the guy after the guy, but you definitely don't want to be the guy after the guy and also lose one of these kind of games. So he made a point, and I think he's going to prove a point again. G5 team, not as talented, not as big. They are going to do, I would assume, the exact same thing they did at Western, run the ball 46 times for 375 yards. And we're people, not we, not the people on this podcast, are going to believe that this defense is still really bad, which, I mean, they are bad until they're proven otherwise, but like that nothing's been fixed. They still suck, yada, yada, yada.
What was Bethune Cookman's SP Plus rating?
They're not good.
Because I think this might be the biggest swing from like one end of the spectrum to the very top. Yeah, that's it. I mean, like the fun thing, like you said, Nathan, is that any given Saturday, right? The season is probably made if we win this game. Like, let's just be honest. Like, if USF rolls into Tuscaloosa,
statues being made if they win this game
and wins, then like this is like a program-defining win and everything like that. But more importantly, this is not a season-defining loss by any stretch of the imagination when Alabama beats USF, 56-13. Like, it's fine. It like ultimately, we're going to look for certain things to harp on evidently
right.
At the end of the day, like, to put in a real Alabama example in here. There are times where you are Robert Steeg playing college football or high school football, I should say. And the other person on the other side is Derrick Henry, and they're better than you. And that's just how God has decided that in that moment that, someone is just physically better than you. They have a 17-year-old that runs like a 4.240, and he's better than us. That guy's
good.
crazy. So have fun. Troll the hell out of Alabama, because it's funny whenever they get like their panties in a twist because a group of 5 schools saying we're going to beat them. I've never seen such a sensitive fan base that's won like 5 national championships in the last 10 years.
Right.
So have fun with it.
Yeah, I don't anticipate it being very fun. So it's gonna out. Last year there were some extenuating circumstances, but if you go back to that game, like I think the defense played so well that people forget how bad the offense played in that game and how Alabama handled them pretty easy. Now Alabama was replacing some guys, but they're still really talented on defense. So I would, what's interesting about this one to me is like talking to some of the people in and around the staff in the offseason. They feel confident they can play. Now, I mean, it could be false bravado. I don't know. Or just, pumping yourself up. But, USF had 177. Let me see. I'm trying to see how much. They had 264 yards of offense last year, 3.6 yards of play. So now, and I didn't think the offensive line looked spectacular against Bethune Cookman. Thought they were not bad, but thought thought they could have played a little bit better. So I'm not banking on an upset or anything,
Right.
but their confidence, the confidence they were kind of talked about in the summer, does kind of make me kind of want to wait back and see what they're holding back. So I think there is something there. They obviously, like Steeg said at the beginning, you didn't get to page 2 in the playbook. It seemed like against Bethune Cookman, you didn't have to. So what do you got? Because they've shown in the past they can come out with some fun wrinkles. So you do that, you get some turnovers, you're in a game. I would be shocked, and I hope it's a tight game and USF gets a lot more national respect, and that goes a long way towards building the program and everything, and laying the foundation and getting where you want to get. But yeah, don't be shocked if Alabama just comes out, because they remember last year as well.
Right.
Like, I think they came in kind of taking USF pretty lightly and almost lost, right? So I don't think they're going to take USF lightly. It's at home. Like you said, new head coach.
I'm sure it's Dick Saban coronation day too.
Yeah, they named the field after him, or is that what it is?
Yeah, I think so.
So yeah, I'm sure he may even give a little speech before the game for him. I don't know, but it's a really tough matchup, and it's such talent whiplash after playing Bethune.
Right. I don't know how to say this. This team has not played a quarterback with a pulse in, like, game-wise, in like 5 games, right? Like, Charlotte's quarterbacks were terrible. Syracuse used a tight end. Bethune was bad.
Frank Harris was probably the last one, and he torched him.
So, like, this is...
And Frank Harris is like a Publix brand version of Jalen Milroe.
Right. Like, the Jalen Milroe is a freaking dude. And he was one of the reasons why Alabama was able to turn the season around after the first couple of weeks and get to the semifinal. Now, better snap, and he may score, or, like, they could be playing for another national championship game. It just, that snap was just so horrific that it blew up the play before it even started. Let's not forget that part of the problem. Like, they were well on their way to competing for a national title. I don't think they've got the horses, USF that is, to compete right now. And that is totally fine. This is not the ultimate prize. Go get the paycheck. Enjoy the 100,000 plus people in the stadium watching you on ESPN in prime time. Like, show that there are signs of life in this program. This is one way to do it. You kind of started it last year with that Alabama game, but that was such a fluke and confluence of events. You have to have Jalen Milroe get benched because he pouted and kind of sucked the game before. You had to have a lacrosse player and then another backup quarterback who was just dreadful to compete. You had a guy defensively on your side who had the game of his life. Like, there's just all these things. The rain delay, like the light, like, it's just.
Isn't it supposed to rain this weekend in Tuscaloosa?
There is possibility of rain in Tuscaloosa. So, like, there's a lot of things
points from the USF offense.
No, not even that. Double digits would be awesome for this team. Like, come on. The things I'm looking for defensively, you don't want guys wide open. Like, get beat, but be competitive. Like, if a guy just mosses you, totally fine, but that probably means you were in position to make a play. Just the guy doing the mossing was just a little bit better than you. Be in position, have an attempt, right? But don't, like, the busted coverages are just, like, that's just not going to sit well with me, because then we're still kind of having the same conversations.
Yeah, no, it's a great opportunity, and it's exciting to get that measuring stick, and hopefully, they play better than we kind of feel like, and that Vegas has it. Last I looked at it, it was hovering around 30. I'm not sure if it's much better right now. But yeah, really good opportunity, like you said, on a national stage to, if you're a player, make a name for yourself, for the team, for the program. If you can go in and play a tight game, play a good game. If you somehow came out with a win, it would be unbelievable. But just even playing a tight game, I think, goes a long way. It looks like it's sitting, 30.5, 31 right now, the spread. So last year, was it 35, I think? So, it's crazier things have happened, I suppose. But
yeah, that sounds about right. Here's another issue that we have. There's some injuries. So Jason Vaughn didn't play against Bethune. Could be back, may not be back. So that's a guy on the defensive line that's questionable / doubtful. Rashad Cheney, we hinted at it. We've intimated at it for about a week and a half, that he may not be full go. He did not play. Lingering issue there. So definitely something to be mindful of. That's another big body in the defensive line that you're going to be missing. Decarius Hawthorne was also injured on Saturday. The FAU transfer, he was pretty good. He showed some flashes, some very good side-to-side stuff along the line that I've definitely enjoyed seeing from him. Another guy, but I mean, one of the best defensive linemen that you had was Jahari Grant. He's a true freshman. I mean, he's over 300 pounds, but he's a true freshman going to Tuscaloosa. That's a tall order. You still got Doug Blue Eli. Doug Blue Eli, excuse me. So there's that going forward. I'm just not expecting too much from this team. Show me a couple of things, and we'll go from there.
So just for reference, Phil Steele tracks kind of how teams perform against the spread and just on the money line by kind of point ranges. So 28 to 35 point underdogs since 1997. There has been 1,098 games with a 28 to 35 point underdog, and the underdog has won 20 times since 1997. So not a lot. The last 13 years, the underdog has won, out of 641, has won 15 times. So it's happening more often in the last 12 years, but it still only happens like 2% of the time, an outright win. So not super likely. I think Steeg posted last week that the ESPN Power Index was basically the inverse of the Bethune Cookman game.
Right.
USF.
Yeah, it's actually gotten worse since then, surprisingly. Like, I think they gave USF, it was like USF like 97.2% against Bethune Cookman, and it was the exact same for Alabama over USF, and now it's gone up more. So it's like at 98, I think, last time I looked at it. So
last year, no underdogs of 28.5 to 35 points won outright, but 54.8% of them did cover. So
that's kind of where I'm at. I think it would be cool. I don't know, 30 points is kind of a weird sticking point, especially with Kalen Deboer. Like its success is getting out of there relatively injury free, and like maybe Alabama needs a touchdown at the end to win by like 35. So like, you basically kept it at 28, but they scored with like less than 3 minutes left to give them a 35-point margin victory. Like that's relative success to me. Relative, that's not the right word. Realistic success to me is, don't get mollywopped, but also if you do, whatever. Get some
Doesn't
backups
define
up.
the season. Yeah. Doesn't define the season. Very okay with it. So the line per Hard Rock is Alabama minus 31. The over-under is 63.5. So I was trying to work out what that actual score was. If anybody could help me out. I don't know how they do it.
Like a 47.5 to 16, right?
Something like that. Oh, I guess
That's
so.
kind of what the implied score is. So does that seem like a likely score? I think it does give you a nice. I think like I said, it's a great opportunity. It gives you a good measuring stick, like defensively. I think Alabama's going to be much better on offense this season, like in terms of schematically.
Yeah.
So if you can play well again on defense this year, I think that's a really good sign going forward. It's hard to hold a team with as much talent as Alabama down the whole game, so don't anticipate that. But if you can kind of play and not look totally out of place, I think that's probably a good sign going forward. And then, I think they still have a lot of really good players on defense. So it's just it'll be a nice measuring stick to kind of see where you're at. And if you can play with them, then you got to feel really good the rest of the year. I think Miami's really good, but outside of that, nobody else is going to be close. So,
yeah, Kelly Ford updated his projection for the season, and really, I mean, Alabama, Miami, and Tulane are all like very heavy favorites for the opposition. But that Memphis game is now inching closer to a coin flip, and then everything else is also moving in USF's general right direction. About a 40% chance of 8 wins, 15% chance at 9 wins. So you're looking pretty all right now, my opinion.
Yeah, don't show your ass and you'll be all right. Like, just don't get Western Kentucky, and I think you'll be fine. I think we'll be able to live with it.
Score.
That'd be sick.
That'd be sick. Just score.
Yeah, that'd be pretty nice.
I think my expectations are that low, but I think they'll score. I'm not quite there, but yeah, it's going to be rough. I think it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's wrap this up. We've got a pick to make. Recapping last week, Seth, you nailed it. USF minus 38.5. Steeg did not. Nathan did hit. All right. So we've got the total, or we could do the spread. So again, Alabama minus 31.5. The spread over under 63.5. Steeg, since you lost, you get to pick first. What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm going over 63.5. I think it's going to be a points palooza, even if the rain comes in, because there's not a lacrosse player playing quarterback for Alabama this year.
Fair. All right. I am going to go USF plus 31. I think just some optimism.
Yeah,
Good
I'm going
teams win, great teams cover.
That's what I'm leaning that way myself. I think to USF to cover. I think they can score a little bit. So yeah, let's go with it. I mean, it could be like, if it's going to be an over game, I don't think it's going to. USF's going to have to score some points to contribute to that over. So, could you see like a 41-20 type game or something like that? Well, there you go. We're within the margin there, but let's take a cover.
Yeah, absolutely. Last thing before we get out of here. So Vanessa and I we will be up at Alabama. Just waiting on the confirmation of those credentials. USF officials did say that they put us on the list. Said, hey, we are normal people, so we should be fine, good to go there. We'll be leaving Friday, probably getting in late Friday night. But be sure to join the Discord. Tell your friends about it. We've seen an uptick over the last week or so of people joining the Discord and also joining the Patreon, which you'll get extra content. We have the Patreon-only game thread, which is less unhinged than the normal one. Inside information. You guys got the Patreon's got the injury stuff and holdouts well before anybody else did. So definitely something to keep in mind and keep an eye on. But tell your friends. It's been a lot of fun. We have something lined up with some folks with ties to Alabama later in the week, and we'll have that out for the Patreons as a Patreon exclusive interview and whatnot. Some more advanced stats information as well. But with that being said, be safe, travel safe. Have fun in Tuscaloosa. Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.